Hey everybody, George Levy here. I wanted to take this moment to talk about something that got a lot of buzz yesterday, and there's a lesson in it which I want to share with you because it really points out exactly a lot of the lessons of what Bitcoin is all about. So I'm going to focus specifically on the fact that yesterday, during Janet Yellen's speech to Congress, someone in the background held up a sign that said "Buy Bitcoin," and there was a lot of buzz about this. It actually came out in the web and everybody talks about this. But with a lot of the things that people don't talk about is the fact that right after that, the same guy held up a sign and he actually shared it on Reddit. And in that sign, he actually held his Bitcoin address with the same sign. So it was proof that it was him. Now, what's interesting about this is that that specific act that he shared his picture on Reddit and it went viral triggered a flood of donations to his Bitcoin address. So let's put things in context. You may have heard that Bitcoin is anonymous. This is a perfect opportunity to see that Bitcoin is not anonymous. Bitcoin is actually pseudonymous, because the fact that I know now that this gentleman right here who held up the sign owns this Bitcoin address here assigns to me that anything that happens with this Bitcoin address corresponds to him. So while I don't know his name, I do know that he is the owner of that Bitcoin address. So he actually has a pseudonym right now, which is his Bitcoin address. Very similar to how when you have a celebrity who doesn't go by his real name, he actually goes by a stage name. So the key thing about that is that you don't know that person's real name, but you know that that pseudonym or stage name of that person corresponds to that person. So let's see why this is such a relevant thing. So he is the owner of that Bitcoin address. And because I know that, and because Bitcoin is actually a publicly available blockchain, I can go into a block explorer, which actually tracks of all the transactions and all the action that actually happens in Bitcoin. And I can start drilling down exactly to see what happened with his Bitcoin address. So let's do exactly that. When we focus with his Bitcoin address and I do a search, this site actually lets me look at all the activity to a Bitcoin address. This Bitcoin address, as you can see, corresponds to the same Bitcoin address that we have for him. We have full visibility of how many Bitcoins he has received, how many Bitcoins he has sent, because he actually didn't keep his Bitcoins in the same Bitcoin address, and how much he's got left. So when we start working out the numbers, what we find is that he received 4.95 all the way down to 4.951850046 BTC, which works out to approximately 11,000, well actually no, at the time of this currency exchange, it's $11,701. Not bad for holding up a sign. Furthermore, I know that he has sent out X amount and he has a final balance of 0.02042928, which works out to $48 at the current exchange rate of Bitcoins to dollars. So let's look at other visibilities on this thing. If I go to a different block explorer, this one provided by blockchain.info, I can see exactly the address. I can look at all the transactions that are in there. I can actually drill down into each individual transaction, how much was received, how much was sent. We can see that the amount received matches the exact amount received in this other site. It's exactly the same, as well as the total sent. The reason why I'm telling you this is because all the transactions that happen on the Bitcoin blockchain are publicly available, and anybody can look at them at any single time. So there's a lot of transparency involved in transacting in Bitcoin. Here's another view of exactly the same Bitcoin address and how the volume of these transactions came. And this again is from blockchain.info. You can see there was an influx of transactions at around 3 p.m. Then there was another spike that was at about 7 p.m. Then we see as it trickles and it keeps going like that. So the key thing that I want to point out into all of this is that the mere act that he was able to, after actually holding up his sign over at the meeting with Janet Yellen in the background, and then sharing his picture with the Bitcoin address, generated over $11,000 worth of Bitcoin in donations to him. I'm going to leave you with one last key thing on this. This is not the first time that this has ever happened. In fact, in 2013, a college kid made more than $24,000 by holding up a sign, and ESPN caught it. And that sign actually had his QR code, which corresponded to his Bitcoin address. That actually generated $24,000 worth of Bitcoin at the time. Now, here's what's interesting about it. If he would have held that whole amount of Bitcoin in Bitcoin it would be worth far more than $24,000 because at the time Bitcoin was worth a lot less than what it's worth now. So just pointing out into context how incredibly powerful it is of a technology such as Bitcoin that you can simply just send money, or actually in this case, Bitcoin, as easily as just taking a picture and emailing it, which you can't do with cash. I hope you have enjoyed this lesson. I thought it was an awesome thing that he held up that buy Bitcoin sign, and I'm glad that I'm able to share it with you. So once again, this is George Levy. We're changing the world one blockchain at a time.